It happened again. The Norse Dwarfs could not have picked a worse place to live. At the edge of the known world, KRAKA DRAK stands as the first line of defense when demons come calling. And unfortunately for the Dawi of the Dragon's Hold, they come calling often. During the Great War against Chaos some 200 years before, it was the site of a decades-long siege by Valmir of the Aisling tribe, and now a new wave of horrors crash against its walls. Kabanda the Exalted, Lieutenant of Karnath, newly appointed warlord of the Second Host, and his buddy Kholek Suneater, out for a stroll in the giant home mountains. Feeling frisky, might delete some Karaks later, IDK. And this siege is a shrine to Khorne, an all-star game of his most powerful champions. Egil Styrbjorn, High Jarl of the Scaling tribe, will be joining in on the slaughter with his own chosen berserkers, frothing in rage and ready to storm the walls alongside the monsters and mammoths of the far north. Norska and the Warriors of Chaos are sweeping down from the steppes, and sturdy walls, stout defenders, and courage in the face of Armageddon are the only things standing in the way of full-scale invasion of the old world. The Norse Dwarfs are the fire that burns against the cold, the light that brings the dawn, the horn that wakes sleepers, and the shield that guards the realms of men. For the watch. So this is a battle organized by Harry Hobbit as a war between discords. He and Sergeant Deadman are repping Jackie Fish's Discord as the attackers, and 51-inch Wee Wee Man and It's Cyber are repping Milk and Cookies Total War with their big dick energy as the KRAKA DRAK defenders. So thanks to them for organizing this and getting it sent in. We have done a video on this map once before. Last time it was the Chaos Dwarfs attacking. This time it's the big bads themselves, and we're using Cataph's KRAKA DRAK mod and SFO Grimhammer with Mixu's Lord mods. Kabanda is a leading Bloodthirster of Khorne's End Times Legions, and with the Blood God's blessing, he has insane stats and abilities as befitting of one of his greatest champions. Gonna be a nightmare to deal with. And the 8 legions have come. Chaos Warriors, Khorne chosen Berserkers, a great Chaos Dragon, and a bunch of Norskins howling to the moon. Almost 3,000 of them attacking, and almost 5,000 KRAKA DRAK defenders defending. One of the biggest battles we've ever done in Total War Warhammer on one of the biggest and most well-made siege maps. At the northern gate come the barbarians of the Scaling tribe, Soulcrusher Mammoth and a Werkin already bounding towards the main gate, and Egil Styrbjorn will be leading the invasion from this side of the battlefield. His chaos armor knits his wounds closed and fills him with inhuman vigor as his twin axes Garmir and Gormir cleave heads and limbs. He's going to be zerking it up once the walls fall, and he is tailor-made for making Dawi even shorter. Great Frostdrake brings bad news on swift wings from above, with Frost Trolls and the Maws of Savagery in support, and huge credit has to go to Frodo for this map. So well designed. Really nails the aesthetics and playstyle for what most of us want out of siege battles in general, and it's comforting to know that even if CA never gives them the overhaul they deserve, we can rely on talented modders like this one to recreate the coolest battles of the setting. So what do you guys think? What are the chances CA hears us and decides to overhaul siege combat in Warhammer 3? I certainly hope they do. I'll never expect them to do something like this. They do have the AI to worry about. They do have optimization to worry about, which are things that modders don't necessarily have to take into consideration quite as much. And they have as much time as they need to create each individual map, whereas the devs themselves, they've got like 50 or 80 maps to make by themselves. But with that said, looking at a map like this one, it is gorgeous, and so are the KRAKA DRAK Dwarfs by Cataph. We've talked about his mods before. Insanely talented modder. Modded battles like this are always so much fun, and we've got really cool characters to show off as well. Orgi Three Fingers is a KRAKA DRAK runesmith who went mad, and he's responsible for a lot of the tech that makes the KRAKA DRAK Dwarfs what they are. Now, a lot of this is fan fiction by Cataph. I don't have a problem with it because there was a lot of exposition for the KRAKA DRAK Dwarfs in the lore. So a lot of this did need to get made up if they were actually going to become a playable faction. And so I think Thorgard Kromson and Orgi Three Fingers are both kind of, if not entirely made up characters, all their lore is basically made up because there's no real stories for them whatsoever. That said though, pretty cool characters. Orgi Three Fingers can actually create an AoE where everything inside becomes essentially ethereal, 80% physical resist, but they lose like almost all their damage, become incredibly tanky, and Thorgard Kromson is the legendary lord of the KRAKA DRAK Dwarfs. He is their faction leader, and he's holding out in the final capture plaza, waiting to defend it from the clutches of the invaders, and a really powerful, stout defense on the eastern side of the city as the Great Chaos Dragon. A Zinchian one with twin heads roars overhead and begins unleashing its breath attacks. And good night, sweet princes. It is SFO Grimhammer. Yes, breath attacks are stupid powerful, and that unit doesn't exist anymore. It's just gone. Melted away. Good night. So yeah, that's Path Grinders and Spike Gunners that are completely out of the fight right now. Now, the Spike Gunners are going to be firing kind of like nail guns, essentially. Weaponized nail guns at very short range, kind of like blunderbusses, but they fire nail projectiles that will headshot you and penetrate armor pretty well. Think of them as short-range handguns. And the Pathfinders and the Path Grinders, they kind of throw runes that are grenades that blow stuff up and create a lot of space for your defenders. There are Slayers and normal Dwarf units in the Norse Dwarf roster. You can see some of them attacking this great Chaos Dragon right now. And there's also a Demon Slayer on the field, hopefully ready to attack Kabanda and banish him back to the warp from whence he came. Now, the Chaos Dragon is going to be a big issue. They are quite a bit more powerful in SFO Grimhammer than they are in Vanilla, which isn't to say they aren't impactful there as well, but they can be brought as their own unit, not just as a mount in this mod, and it's going to be causing havoc everywhere it lands. Spike Gunners and the Slayers will need to team up to take it down, and same thing if they want to deal with this great Frost Drake and the Soul Crusher Mammoth. A lot of HP on these bad boys, but big targets, big hitbox, and focus fire from your Spike Gunners, from your Path Grinders, and all your range stuff can be pretty good. Also have some Troll Melter Grudge Throwers, which fire bonus for large projectiles that would also be quite good if they're able to hit those large targets. All of these ramparts are equipped with Scorpion Bolts that fire flaming ammunition. Very good against Trolls and Werekin, but not necessarily the most accurate thing in the world. KRAKA DRAK Dwarfs are kind of drunkards, and they aren't the most accurate of creatures in the Warhammer world. So taking down the big monsters, if they can get good shots in, not going to be the hardest thing in the world for them, but getting the good shots is part of the issue when you're downing Bugman's XXX brew every day, all day, 24/7, 365. Really cool lore snippet. That water that's coming through the gate right now is 100% intentional, and the idea behind it is that any attackers that manage to break through the gate are drenched in a waterfall. Doesn't sound too bad, but we're not exactly talking about temperate conditions at the moment. It's minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit here in the far north, which means any warrior that gets drenched in freezing cold water, pretty likely to die of hypothermia soon after. And I don't care, unless you're a Chaos Demon, if you're just a regular barbarian, unless you're blessed by the Dark Gods themselves, there's a very good chance you're gonna freeze up and stop functioning correctly once you run through that northern gate. So these Marauder champions, maybe because they're blessed by the Dark Gods, will be fine, but the normal Berserkers, the normal Marauders, not gonna have such a great time as that battle wears on. Now, of course, in Total War Warhammer, there's no effect for that, but the lore reasoning behind it makes a lot of sense. It doesn't necessarily have to drench them in fire or oil or anything horrendous like that. Just, you know, kind of freeze them in place. That's the opposite of freezing. Another breath attack and another Path Grinder unit evaporated by the Tzeentchian breath of a Chaos Dragon. Kholek dropping lightning from above, and the Khorne-chosen Berserkers are already into the thick of it now. Dragon Ogre Shaggus and the babies of Kholek Suneater going to work here. No matter what comes to that gate, you will stand your ground. You are Warriors of KRAKA DRAK Warbears charging into melee, but Kholek Suneater and Kabanda, the Exalted one of the premier Bloodthirsters of Khorne, makes a pretty big impact on the end times, channeling his axe, and he's gonna purge the daylights out of these poor KRAKA DRAK defenders. Look at that stat line. Absolutely absurd, getting close to 1,000 weapon strength. It's gonna be hard to deal with all that DPS and that incessant rage of Khorne. The monsters gonna have a good time as the battle begins, but they've got so many defenders to charge through. It's gonna be tough for them to deal with. In fact, one of the Shaggus has already melted to that troll catapult and to all the Spike Gunner fire. It's crisscrossing its way into the attackers at the moment. Khorne-chosen Berserkers are trying to take the walls, but the Word Bearers are tough. The Dwarf Warriors are tough, and they're going to be able to hold the line for a very long time. In fact, Khorne-chosen Berserkers really actually aren't the best option against KRAKA DRAK. I mean, in SFO Grimhammer, just getting regular Chosen with great weapons and then giving them the Mark of Slaanesh for extra armor-piercing damage is really all you're going to need. I generally feel like units like this, like Kabanda, are best left for submods. Kit bashing can ultimately only go so far in Total War Warhammer. We'll be seeing plenty of these bad boys, these Bloodthirsters, in the flesh for Game 3, but all things considered, with modding limitations being the way they are, it's really not a bad model at all. And Kholek Suneater unleashing his Zapdos attacks, and those poor Rangers getting melted by lightning strikes. You can see it functions a little bit differently than it does in the base game here. Multiple lightning strikes coming down on a single target, dealing a lot of damage to those defenders in the choke point. And there's a Demon Slayer waiting nearby. Get him on top of Kabanda and watch as he melts away, but not attacking anything at the moment. Lots to micro. I mean, look at how many defenders there are. Look how many attackers there are. Look at how spread out this battlefield is. It's getting crazy, and we're only about 10 minutes into the battle so far. Great Chaos Dragon overhead, maybe looking to line up yet another breath attack, getting smacked in the face by a troll catapult. Deals bonus for large, and I think damage over time as well. It's really good at killing those large single entities if it can hit. Thunderbows above, dropping leadership of the attackers, causing those berserkers to rampage. I think Egil Styrbjorn's rampaging there too. And the Norskin War Mammoth, the Soul Crusher, the frosty blue-eyed pachyderm from the far north, marching through the gates. And it's going to go right for those defenders and smush them. Yeah, that's dope. Okay, so the Mammoth is doing a pretty good job right now, just kind of being that bastion in the front, taking a ton of damage. Leading the way is a battering ram for the Marauder champions and Egil Styrbjorn, wielding those twin axes of Garmir and Gormir. On the other side of the freezing waterfall, wait some Longbeards and Dwarf warriors, waiting to receive the charge of these Norscan invaders, who have not committed a lot to the fight yet. They have committed, obviously, Egil Styrbjorn and that kind of HQ with the MVP Marauder champions and the Mammoth and the Werkin. But besides that, most of the Berserkers and Marauders are hanging back and waiting for a better opportunity to strike once a foothold has been established. There have been a few units thrown up onto the walls, but as you can see, most of the attack is still kind of waiting on the wings, waiting for that perfect moment. And Hell Cannons have been doing a good job of hiding behind the cliffs out there, making sure not to get sniped out early, or they can be used later on in the battlefield. On this side, Warriors of Chaos have gotten a little bit more zealous in their fight, and it makes sense, because they do have a great Bloodthirster leading the charge. Kholek and Kabanda, they can make pretty much anyone mad. Just the sheer presence of a Bloodthirster of Khorne will drive you into a frenzy, and the Axe of Purging, a Burning Skull, and the Flames of Khorne, creating space for the attackers and ripping through these KRAKA DRAK defenders. The Chaos Dragon is into the Spike Gunners and the Thunderbows, causing terror and ripping them apart. Zinchian Fire, shredding them, immolating them, burning them alive, burninating the countryside and burninating the peasants, but his HP is plummeting. A lot of focus fire coming in, and the defenders are doing a fantastic job of killing that huge monster. Lots of AP going its way, and it looks like it's about to go down for good. Another volley, another attack will be all that's required, and the Chaos Dragon, after killing 280 some defenders, is out of the fight. So yeah, that's been painful so far, but the Pathgrinders firing their grenades into Kabanda and into Kholek, into the Shaggoth. Dragon Ogres are beginning to drop. Runesmith is on slivers of HP and looks like he just died. And Kholek's baby is probably about to join him in the Netherrealm. But Kabanda is such a huge issue for the defenders right now. They're layering their defense really nicely. I think they're doing a good job of making sure to keep wave after wave of defenders, making sure that Kabanda only engages like 1 or 2 at a time, layering it with the Spike Gunners, laying it with the armor-piercing volleys. But dealing with that and Kholek and their stat lines, their HP pool, their missile resist, their armor, it's just a lot to deal with for sure. And they're going to have to slowly grind them down over time. Same thing with the Soul Crusher Mammoth and that 44% ward save, that damage negation when he pops the damage resist. Going to be very hard to bring him down, but over the course of a long battle, especially with the way these defenders have kind of set up their armies, they've gone for a lot of low-tier stuff. And I think that's very smart. When you're up against a Bloodthirster, and you're up against Egil Styrbjorn and all these incredibly powerful infantry, one of the better ways to deal with it is just get them tired. Throw chaff at them over and over again, and layer your defense with a lot of armor-piercing missiles, Thunderbows, Spike Gunners, Pathgrinders, all that. None of those are very expensive, and you will slowly whittle them down over time as they move closer and closer to that final capture point. And it's working out pretty nicely. I mean, Soul Crusher's down to half HP. Egil Styrbjorn is regenning, but he's way past half right now. Marauder champions are getting dumpstered by all this ranged fire and the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, and honestly, it's just working out pretty nicely for the defenders at the moment. They are pushing through, but they are taking a lot of losses and a lot of HP damage on their most important troops. Now, as I say that, there's a mass rout over on the eastern side of KRAKA DRAK, the Dragon's Hold. Kabanda and Kholek and the Khorne Chosen Berserkers have proved to be a little bit too much. You can just see this gigantic Chaos Horde streaming their way, screaming to get at that plaza, to capture it and raise it in the name of Khorne. But they've got a lot more work to do, and the KRAKA DRAK defenders are not even close to ending this battle. But the Hounds of Decay are on the hunt. A little bit of Nurgle loving for you guys, and they are very different than regular Chaos Warhounds. You might notice they're quite a bit larger, about twice the size of a KRAKA DRAK Dwarf, and they're just smashing them. They have a bonus versus infantry, and the Swarm of Flies lowers melee attack by 8 in an AoE, and smushing those routing units, feasting on them from both flanks. It's not the ideal scenario when you're surrounded by a bunch of loving doges. I mean, you know, you see those videos of people surrounded by like a bunch of golden retriever puppies, and they're super happy. They're just getting like petted and licked by a bunch of cute little doges. Yeah, it's kind of like that, except this time it's gigantic Nurgle hounds eating you for dinner. Yeah, not great. It's not great at all. Kholek Suneater and Kabanda the Exalted One, they're Eskimo bros on this side, taking these poor dwarves to Pound Town. Yeah, it's getting bad. It's getting bad for the defenders. What they're going to have to do at this point is fall back and get their stuff to that final capture point. They're a bit spread out now. Their defense is kind of split up, spread thin. They need a spot where they can form a coherent, powerful defense with layers. And at the moment, this stuff, these Orgies, blades, they're just cut off from the rest of the defenders, and they'll be able to hold out for a while, I guess. I mean, Egil Styrbjorn not going to be able to completely destroy that unit super quick, but at the end of the day, they are going to get cut off from the rest of the army and cut to pieces eventually. Yeah, these Marauder great weapons are going to prove too much for them, especially when backed up by one of the greatest champions of Khorne in recent memory. And the Northern Gate has fallen for the most part. The Norskins are pushing through, ignoring what defenders remain, and trying to get at that final capture point, but they've got a stout defense lined up. Slayers are unbreakable, but really fighting one of the worst targets in the game for them. They can't penetrate that armor very effectively at all, and Chosen Great Weapons are pretty much a threat to any unit in Warhammer. I mean, they're great versus Cav, they're great versus monsters. They're definitely going to be able to deal with Mohawk men, Mohawk dwarfs with 0 armor. Stats are just absolutely insane, and even more so in SFO Grimhammer, and the result is predictable. Getting a couple kills, but at the end of the day, sliced apart limb from limb, decapitated, and one dwarf making his last stand. It's so epic, but Kabanda and Kholek gonna march over him. His head also goes rolling, and that is the Slayer unit completely wiped out. Okay, they don't have a very easy avenue of attack. I think that final capture point is going to be really hard to break because they've got an elevated position to fire from with their Thunderbows and Spike Gunners. I think this Dwarf Warrior unit is pretty much the only remaining one on the northern ramparts. And the Chaos Warriors are going to attack them, and it should be relatively quick for that unit to disappear. But those Marauders with great weapons are about to rout, and hell, maybe they'll be able to hold on for a while and delay the assault. If they can kind of force these Warriors of Chaos and Norskins to attack in waves and not all come in at once, if they can avoid getting attacked from multiple angles here at the end of all things, they're going to be able to maybe deal with the Chaos Warriors before Norska even gets there. Because the Norskins have been a little bit more patient with their assault. Chaos was straight up YOLO. They went right in, committed everything. Norska has been a bit more reserved and patient in their approach. Kholek unleashing a tempest of storms and lightning all around him in an AoE. Huskarls and ward bearers rather. I'm not talking 40k, I'm not talking the uselessness that is Lorgar and his douchery in the Horus Heresy. But they're surrounding him, getting some good AP in there, but he's supported by Chosen as the Spike Gunners fire in and are really starting to wreck Kabanda, who is pretty much up to 350 kills at this point. The Bloodthirster of Khorne, the Exalted One, certainly living up to his name. But he is getting shredded by armor-piercing missile fire. And Slayers are going to be nearby, and it might just be a combo powerful enough to banish that Bloodthirster to the warp. Rangers with great weapons aren't a bad target either. They've thrown all their ammo in, which is actually probably a big reason why it's lost so much of its health. But they're going to get in melee, where they also have a lot of armor piercing, and a couple more volleys might be enough to send this demon to the Netherrealm. Yeah, he just got his head blown off. A greater demon of Khorne just got his head blown off by a close-range volley from Spike Gunners. That was epic. And he's gone. He's off the field. And now Orgi Three Fingers, the blood-crazed runesmith of KRAKA DRAK, getting in there with his Rune of Beauty and Rune of Slaughter. And in an AoE, all these units have essentially turned ethereal. 80% physical resistance, magical attacks imbued, but their melee stats dropping like crazy while they're under the effects of that buff. So it makes them way tankier, way harder to kill, but less efficient in melee combat. That's a really good idea because it's giving these range units more time to fire in, giving those troll catapults more time to unleash their devastating volleys, more time for the Spike Gunners to whittle down the attackers, and essentially give these defenders at the final capture point the time they need to do the damage they want to do. So these troll melters getting some shots in, and KRAKA DRAK holding the line pretty admirably at the moment. Chaos is committing so much to the right side, but they're still getting stuffed like a Thanksgiving turkey. Lord and his ancestral shield bearers with Deadly Onslaught popped, proving way too much for the attackers to deal with, and terror beginning to set in for this invasion force. They're gonna back up. They're gonna try to get the hell out of here. It's getting real Spooktober-y. Even though it's November now, miners charging in to help reinforce, and this is a good engagement for the Norse Dwarfs. Hounds of Decay might be in there, but Swarm Flies doesn't matter too much, and even the Troll Melters are firing in, which they should probably be careful about. Good to use those to kill the Dragon Ogres, but if you're friendly firing your own stuff, not gonna be too good. I love the defense they have set up here. This is exactly what you want to do. Look at that. The Troll Melters are in the back. They've got good line of sight to fire over the defenders. They've got Spike Gunners, they've got the Thunderbows, and all the melee troops up in the front just provide that sturdy phalanx, hold the line for as long as possible. Spike Gunners getting ballistics calibration from Orgi, firing in, getting some good shots on the large single entities. Kholek is going to have to take solace behind those cliffs. If he sticks around, he'll die. Chaos Warriors trying to push through, but these Ward Bearers, very hard to kill. They're very tanky and very survivable, able to hold the line incredibly well, and it looks like that Rune of Slaughter has popped again. So they'll be ethereal, 80% physical resist. Just gonna be a grind as we move into the later stages of this battle. Norska has not committed to the right flank. They have not sent in the rest of their invasion force yet. There are a bunch of reinforcements moving their way through the Citadel at the moment. That's gonna be incredibly hard for these defenders to deal with, and the Chosen of Tzeentch spewing their own fires of the Changer of Ways. They got the Mark of Tzeentch, which gives them a bound spell. That was really cool. Essentially a Chaos Dragon Breath, not anywhere near as powerful, but they can spew their own fire if they choose the Mark of Tzeentch. But they're running for the hills now. They are off the field. Very cool debuff. And pretty well cast, too. Seems like it actually caused some havoc in the Chaos Dwarf line. Some of them are starting to retreat. And Egil Styrbjorn, oh my god. He went in by himself. I guess he got in a bit of a duel with Thorgard Kromson, and he's down to half. He is regenning. Nothing is chasing him off the field, though. If the Slayers were chasing him there, they'd be so big. Pit of Shades on top of the Spike Gunners at the crest of those stairs. And Egil looks like he might be able to come back. Yeah, he's gonna rally. He rallied about 10 feet from the edge of the map. If he routes off there, that's a huge swing in the Norse Dwarfs' favor. But I don't think they noticed it. They were focusing on other parts of the battlefield, which makes sense. Look at what's coming in here. And an entire Norskin War Shrine Mammoth charging in. Kholek Suneater is beating up on your Master Engineer. The Runesmith might go down here too. The Monster Mash is in full swing, but the Spike Gunners are still around. The Dwarf Warriors, or rather Rangers with great weapons, are still around. They still have their throwing axes, and the Slayers are moving up to begin dealing with these monsters. And this choke point could be a death sentence for all these huge monsters. For Kholek, for the Norscan Warshrine Mammoth, a giant Slayer's on top of you, and it's not what you want to be or where you want to be when you've got a bunch of blood-crazed Slayers smashing hammers into your toesies over and over and over. Very few units in Warhammer can melt a monster quicker than giant Slayers. It's what they're good for, and they are looking for that honorable, glorious death to atone for their sins. And with the focus fire coming in, both Kholek and the Norscan Warshrine Mammoth are in pretty big trouble. Egil Styrbjorn, not exactly in the right neighborhood either. Thorgard Kromson might end up being a big issue for him, but at the moment, he is causing some serious havoc. Just on top of the artillery crews, on top of the range stuff, and a lot of them are routing. And they're so close to the white line, they might, yeah, 2 of them already shattered. They won't be coming back. But Thorgard has them surrounded. Gormir and Fight or Die popped for the High Jarl of the Scaling Tribe, the High King of the Norse Dwarfs, ready to duel him and send him into the warp to meet his maker. And I don't think Khorne will be very pleased if Egil loses this duel. To be fair, it's not really a duel. He's completely surrounded by enemies. But none of them really matter. I mean, it's only a handful of ward bearers and Thorgard Kromson himself. That's the duel that has him scared. Because Thorgard is kind of a beast. He's kind of a big deal. People know him. His apartment smells of rich mahogany. He has many leather-bound books. And yeah, Egil is starting to get beat up pretty bad. Down to a third. Wavering. He's going to rout for sure. And that might be the end of the Norscan's leader, which would be a huge blow to their army and a huge win for the KRAKA DRAK Dwarfs. They're still holding on, man. They are still holding on, and they're going to make sure to chase him down this time. And we will not be seeing Egil Styrbjorn again. Really nicely played from the defenders. Really big win for the KRAKA DRAK Dwarfs. Okay, on this side, though, Frost Trolls and the Chosen are in the fight. Ward Bearers holding the line for now. Master Engineer and Orgy Three Fingers still trying desperately to push back these attackers. Balance bar is not quite even, but incredibly close considering we're almost 30 minutes into this battle. But the monsters of Wintertooth cometh. Fimir. They're tailor-made for chunking their way through dwarfs. We got that armor sundering, ton of armor-piercing damage. They're going to be very tough to bring down. They need to get some kind of ranged rear weapons or something with armor-piercing missile damage to shut them down for good. But they even have missile resist too. So taking down these monsters from the bogs, the Cyclops from the marshes, not going to be an easy task whatsoever. And the KRAKA DRAK Dwarfs are starting to look pretty thin. But the War Mammoth, the War Shrine's gone. Kholek is down to a sliver of HP, hiding on one of the abandoned side streets right now, hiding in an alleyway. He can't go back in. He only has 150 HP at this point. But look at what's left for Thorgard Kromson's army. Not a whole lot. Whatever starts routing, they need to make sure it rallies, and they need to put it in that capture point and hold it, no matter the cost. Their families, their ancestors, all will be desecrated if Chaos is able to push through and take this citadel. But it has been torrid and bloody affair. So many dead on both sides, and now only a couple hundred left for each army. Who wants it more? That's what it's going to come down to. The 8 Legion and the blood-crazed Legions of Khorne. Are they going to be pushed on by the Blood God to finish them off with the Maws of Savagery and the Fimir in support? Or can the KRAKA DRAK defenders somehow hold the line here, maybe get some Giant Slayers on top of the Fimir and slice them up real nice, real juicy, real tasty? Still up in the air, man. Incredibly close. What started with about 5,000 KRAKA DRAK defenders, started with about 3,000 Norscan and Chaos Warrior attackers, has whittled itself all the way down to about 200 models on each side. That's insane. And the Crimson Bane, the ROR Ward Bearers for Cataph's KRAKA DRAK Dwarfs. Holding the line here alongside some rangers with great weapons. That armor piercing is a big deal. And looks like the attackers are going to be very smart and extricate themselves from that situation. Get them in a better spot. Those are the Icehorn Marauders. They do have a new skin in SFO Grimhammer. One that is way cooler than the one that's in vanilla. They actually look really badass. And the monsters are going somewhere else. They're actually going to go down another street that has less defenders. It's a pretty good idea. Maybe hold out in the back of the map. Get some regen on those Moss of Savagery, which have been very intelligently used. Only gone in when he knows he can get a ton of kills. And then retreat, allow that regen to kick in. They haven't lost any models. And that unit's going to be really hard to bring down. These Chosen are on the edge, though. They're very close to dying. A couple more swipes from them. Gonna finish off the rest of that Word Bearer unit and push on, but only a handful of models left. And the Javelins are beginning to open up fire now. Those poor Rangers. He just took 5 Javelins to the face. Looking like a pincushion after that one. And the defenders are rallying out of the final capture point and pushing towards those attackers. And I think that's probably the right call. They're getting baited out right now. The attackers are doing a really good job of using these Javelins to kind of force them into an awkward position while their monsters regen. The Norskin Ice Trolls getting all that health regen back, using that metabolism to knit flesh. Chaos Corruption granting them so much health regeneration. And the Javelins moving forward, baiting these defenders to move into a kind of attacking position to push out of the safety of those stairs. But I don't think the Norse Dwarfs have enough models left to take these volleys. They do have to attack. If they don't, they're going to get whittled down by the rest of these missiles. But each time, Norska and Chaos beginning to kite, and Khorne might not be pleased with that, but it might just be what the Doctor ordered if the attackers want to win this battle. Thorgard Crampson leading a desperate final charge. Oh my god, look at how close this battle is. Balance bar still a little bit in the favor of Norska and Chaos, but not by much. Thorgard Crampson into the middle of these attackers. A Lord backing them up. And they're going to be able to slice through the Marauders relatively easily, but it's the Fimir, the Skin Wolves, the Maws of Savagery, and what remains of Kholek's HP that might be the real threat. Like I said though, Kholek has 150 health. If he gets anywhere near these troops, he probably dies to a single attack from any of these Lords. So he might not be able to afford it. Mighty Oathstone popped, stand or die popped, and this will be the final stand of the KRAKA DRAK Dwarfs. Monsters piling in. Skin Wolves howling in from the flank. Moss of Savagery in there. Frost Trolls getting into the flank, getting into the rear, causing havoc. And lots of really good throwing axe volleys coming in. Should be able to melt some of those monsters, but do they have enough ammunition? Do they have the reload speed to finish them off for good? This is starting to look really bad for the defenders. They are just getting shattered, ripped apart by the monsters of Wintertooth. And with that, with Kholek coming in from behind, trying to cause terror, the Javelins getting good shots into the Master Engineer. My lord, that was a beautiful engagement from the Warriors of Khorne and the Warriors of Norska. Kholek will drop Star Crusher, smash a Master Engineer, Terror Route sets in, and that will be your battle. Harry Hobbit and the attackers of Norska and Wintertooth and the Warriors of Chaos will take KRAKA DRAK and begin their full-scale invasion of the old world. Really fun battle. A lot of fun to watch. And in a siege with 8,000 troops, number Khorne is very pleased with. At the end of it, there ended up being less than 100 models on both sides. That's pretty crazy. There were actually 5,000 troops for KRAKA DRAK. Pretty close to 3,000 for the Norskin and Chaos Warrior attackers. And there were some big winners in that fight for sure. I mean, Kholek Suneater, the Bloodthirster of Khorne, Kabanda, the Exalted One, and that great Chaos Dragon, each over close to 300 kills apiece. Egil Styrbjorn really ground up a lot of those Norse Dwarf infantry. Was really good. The Soul Crusher Mammoth was a beast all game long. And at the end, I think a lot of it came down to the Moss of Savagery and the Fimir. There didn't seem to be enough answers for them in that final capture point, that last plaza, that last defense, to shut them down for good. And the trolls were able to escape, hide around the corner, and get a lot of regen. And when they went back in, it proved to be too much for Thorgard Crumpson and the Lord. Really fun layer defense. Thank you for sending that in, guys. Really appreciate it, and hope you guys enjoyed watching as well.